This is something that is really important, which you may not have thought about. It applies when drawing faces, figures, anything with rounded surfaces, and it creates one of the most common mistakes or problems when people are drawing something like a portrait. Okay, so let's just remove this for now and actually think first about this flat plane. Imagine your eyes are this camera on the right, and you're looking along this orange line here straight at this flat plane, and I've marked off the middle and the two ends of it here. You can see the full width of it pretty much from your point of view, and I've marked off the same points on the top, so you can see in the camera on the left the top view. Each half appears the same width to you from this angle, right? As this starts to turn away from your eyes, and you're probably well aware of this, right? It starts to get more foreshortened. And so what you see, the plane hasn't changed in width, but what you see is a narrower plane now, right? And something else you may be aware of, a principle of perspective, is that this further away half over here is going to appear a bit shorter than this closer half, okay? And this foreshortening gets stronger the more it turns away until the plane is, basically completely sort of in line with your eyes, and then you can't see it at all, right? So when it's, completely perpendicular to your eyes, you're looking straight at it, you can see the full width. As it turns, it gets narrower and narrower, and then eventually it gets so foreshortened you don't see anything at all, all right? So now let's compare this with it. If the same thing, I basically made these two pieces of tape exactly the same. One is on a flat surface. This one's wrapped around a curved surface. Okay, so I'm gonna from the front view right now, the way that these appear, it's not that different, right? This is starting to curve away a bit on the curved one, so you're slightly foreshortened as we go out to the corners, but basically you're seeing a pretty similar width, and the two halves are the same width, crucially, right? Okay, and now let's turn this again. Okay, so we're in this kind of 3/4 angle, which is a really nice angle to draw a portrait from, for example. So let's just think quickly again about this flat plane. We've turned it on an angle, so your line of sight, your line of vision is coming in and now hitting this at an angle, and the whole thing feels foreshortened. What about on the curved surface though? Right, your line of sight comes in, but it actually now hits this edge of this curved surface almost straight on now. So now this edge is not really getting foreshortened. Okay, and then it starts to get more foreshortened as we go around the curved surface. But this near side half, it's not really at a super strong angle to your line of sight, right? It's not as crazy as the angle that this further side is to your line of sight. Now this side, your line of vision comes in like this. This side is basically fully foreshortened. All right, we're looking at this side of this curved plane, kind of like as if it was the flat plane, the angle that we're looking at this edge of the curved surface is as if the flat plane was like this, really, really foreshortened. Whereas the near side, all right, when we had this curved surface turned, is kind of like we were looking at this as if, it was straight on. So we're seeing the full width. And then as we kind of go around this curved surface, we're seeing the further side like it's super duper foreshortened. So the amount of foreshortening that happens increases very dramatically as we go around. So what does that mean? All right, that means that unlike the flat surface, where the far side was a little bit shorter, right, than the near side, this time the far side is dramatically shorter. And the more it turns away from us, the more dramatic this is. The far side on this curved surface is incredibly short compared to the near side. So how then does this apply when we're drawing a face? So here we have a face, it's turned in that 3/4 angle. We're not looking straight on at it, it's turned away from our eyes a little bit. So the way people often draw a mouth, so they'll often think of it as kind of like a sticker, right? That's on a flat surface. So this sticker kind of has a lips shape on it. And as it turns, they will then sort of draw it, you know, kind of like this, as if the lips were on this kind of flat surface like this. All right, and it's not a completely terrible idea if the mouth was flat. But now imagine you take you're sneaking some cheese from the fridge and you just take a bite out of that cheese, right? So you've got this block of cheese and you take a bite out of it, right? Your bite is very curved, right? Because our teeth are very, very curved. And the lips are wrapping over that curved surface. So we shouldn't treat it like it's a sticker on a flat surface at all. It's a 3D form, the lips, which are wrapping over a curved surface, much more like the second example that we just looked at our planes. So what does this mean in practice? All right, very often people will draw the lips like this, not realizing just how narrow that far side has become. First of all, the fact is that we're almost looking at the near side more straight on. We're seeing more of the width of it, but the far side is getting increasingly foreshortened as it goes around. And actually, the extent to which this part is foreshortened is less than the furthest part. The amount of foreshortening that happens starts at almost zero here. We're kind of looking straight at the mouth here. And as we go around, it sort of exponentially increases. So that the equivalent of like this section, where we see the full width, is encompassed, I don't know, in like this very, very narrow section on the other side. Okay, so it's disappearing very rapidly. And the angle at which we're viewing each part of this mouth is increasingly getting narrower and narrower. And so you don't have to do like some mathematical calculation for this, but you just need to keep in mind, oh, this is like increasingly getting smaller on the far side, but that's not really happening on the near side. And I'm really getting the full extent of the lip width on the near side. Now, this doesn't just apply to lips, although that's a really good way to practice this. It also applies to things like eyes. The eyelids are wrapping over a ball shape, which is also a curved surface, right? And I think people tend to think of an eye as sort of this shape with eyelashes, you know, and then they'll just put that on some sort of angle, or maybe won't even foreshorten it at all. But the point is that like this part is facing more towards us, and as we go around the eye, it gets more and more foreshortened to the point where we get to here, this part over here, it's getting like we're really looking at it from a very, very strong angle. And there's a like, let's say this is like one half of the eyelid, and this is the other half. But the width that we see for that further away half is way narrower than the width that we see for the nearer half. And if you think about what's happening to this curve, let's say we were looking at this eye from the front. This eye, I don't know, it might have an arc like this, say. But because it gets, more and more foreshortened in this angle as we go around, the curve gets very, very dramatic as we come over here, right? It's a very gentle curve, and then it gets increasingly dramatic as it wraps around over the far side. Another thing worth thinking about, all right, is that the eye is a ball shape, and then it has lids that wrap over that ball shape and create the opening that we see, and those lids have thickness to them. So now everything is three-dimensional. So rather than thinking of the eye as a sort of eye symbol, as like a sticker that's stuck onto the face, think of it as a ball stuck into the head with these lids wrapping around that ball, okay? Now, what does this mean? Well, it means a few things, depending on which angle the light's coming from, the lids will cast a shadow. Normally, the upper lid, if the light is from above, will be casting a little bit of a shadow. Also, you can often see the thickness of the eyelid depending on what angle you're viewing it from. So if you're sort of looking up at an eye, you'll see the thickness of the upper lid. And if you're looking down on an eye, you won't see that, but you'll see the thickness of the lower lid. As the eye turns this way, like this, you might not see that kind of thickness of the lid here, but as it starts to curl around the ball shape, you start to see the thickness of the lid over here, right? This, because you start to see that plane opening up. All right, so let's look at this reference over here on the left-hand side and have a look at what I mean. So here, we don't really see the thickness of the lid over here, but as we get to this area, look at that. We can start to see that thickness of the lid and how it wraps over the ball shape. So we're trying to stop thinking about these features as stickers slapped on to the front of the face, and instead think of 3D forms like lips and eyelids that are themselves wrapping over 3D forms, So the lips wrap over the curved surface of the teeth. The lids wrap over the ball surface of the eyeball. That's a big shift that will transform your portraits and also stop you from making those classic beginner mistakes. Now, if you want to come and learn portraiture with us and learn how to sculpt portraits, big to small, thinking about these underlying forms, wrapping your shapes of light and dark over them, wrapping the features around these underlying forms, come and check out our portrait course. And we also have a free guide to drawing eyes, and I'll link both of those things below, so come and check them out. I've also got a really useful portrait drawing overview on the screen. Check that out and I'll see you over there.